He was the most amazing person I ever met for the first time.
I looked at him and I said, that's the kind of athlete that I want to be.
He would always try to share his wisdom with me, and he was very wise.
One black man could do it, make a difference. I think he set that tone in this country.
Just being a decent human being and genuinely caring about people is the greatest gift and lesson that my father could have given and taught.
He challenged us as a people.
I saw him as a hero.
Even in his silence, he speaks volumes.
Something said, click, and this is your destiny.
There's never been anybody like this guy, and there's never going to be again.
His life was painted on a canvas larger than most of us can imagine. The heavyweight champion of the world, the conscientious objector, the black Muslim, and in the end, the hero bravely confronting Parkinson's disease as it robbed him of the use of his own body. The individuals whose lives he somehow touched make up a human legacy bearing witness to his story.
Ever since I was a little girl, I used to love the attention that I would see people give him because I just thought he must be really important. I didn't understand why when I was young. Later, of course, I did. But I just knew he was something really special because people's eyes would just light up. Naturally, when I was young, I didn't want to share my dad. You're a little girl, you want him all to yourself. And he would explain to me how sometimes when he would leave, he would say, I'm not just the daddy to you, but I'm also the daddy to the rest of the world. He used to say that he knew that he was born for something great back when before he can remember. He just had this strong sense of feeling inside. He said God never actually spoke to him in terms of words, but it was more like a feeling and a sense that he felt in his heart, a deep feeling. And he would go outside every day and just wait for God to tell him his mission in life. He'd look up at the stars, and I said, well, what happened? He goes, I never heard nothing.
Cassius Clay, as the young Ali was known, might not have heard anything from above, but he certainly gathered enough courage from within to stand up to a bully.
Corky Baker was the fight that meant the most to him because he was a neighborhood bully that my father was just afraid of. He'd tell stories about how he used to hold football players upside down until their money fell out their pockets and how he'd lift the ends of trucks up just for exercise. He was just short and stocky and he just scared my father.
Cassius Clay walked up to Corky Baker one day and challenged him to a fight. Not in the streets, but in a boxing ring. Corky Baker may have been big and strong, but Clay was so fast, Corky couldn't even land a punch on him. It wasn't just a victory over a bully, it was a victory over his own fear.
People didn't know how scared he was, but he knew in his heart that he was afraid. So if he didn't face that fear, if he didn't challenge that, and look it in the eye, I think that he knew it would have followed him around everywhere and he wouldn't have felt like a true champion.
Not only did Ali become a true champion to the world, he also became one to his daughter, passing on wisdom gained over the years.
He would say that he thought that history was so beautiful and how we only came through this world once. And one day we're gonna grow up and we're gonna be old, and how, we don't always realize the little things in life that make life so beautiful.
Ali's lessons to his daughter were many.
My father would tell you that he believes that the only true religion is the religion of the heart. And that if you have a good heart and you mean right and you do right and you love people, you give to charity, and you'll get to heaven no matter what you call your religion. That's what he would tell you.
Her father's influence inspired her to become a poet and writer.
My father and I wrote The Soul of a Butterfly because, for one, we wanted to share with the world the things that were important to him, how he got, to where he is, the road he took, why he made some of the decisions that he did, and just answer a lot of questions for people and also tell his story in a different kind of a way, a more touching way that just really shows the essence of his soul. Just being a decent human being and genuinely caring about people is the greatest gift and lesson that my father could have given and taught.
Cassius Clay challenges Gary Joyche, and Joyche is in trouble from the first round on.
First time I met Ali was the National Golden Gloves tournament in Chicago. Standing next to the wall were two guys, and I heard the tall guy say, "That's Skeeter McClure. He's bad."
For Skeeter and Clay, the Golden Gloves was an important tournament to win. Representing the ultimate in amateur boxing, a victory at the Golden Gloves was, for many, the best it could get.
I didn't know who he was, but I discovered he was Cassius Clay after a while. But he was just a nice young kid. That's all. It's like just a kid. But he had a distinct advantage. He was able to move, and he was a hard target to hit. And when you're in the heavyweight division, most fighters, they don't have the practice in having opponents prepare them for a guy who is here, there, and everywhere, you know, and who is also pop, and then he's gone.
The two young fighters became friends, their mutual talent resulting in continued success. In that same year, 1960, both Skeeter and Clay made the Olympic boxing team. In Rome, they both won gold medals in their respective divisions, Skeeter as a middleweight boxer and Clay as a heavyweight.
When I got the gold medal, when they said the winner, McClure, you know, I said, thank God it's over. I don't have to train. I can just relax. I don't have to worry about losing, you know, and I can just be free. For him, the gold medal was helpful. It was a stepping stone to his career, to his professional career.
For Skeeter McClure, winning the gold was enough. He ended his boxing career and eventually became a professor of psychology at Bentley College in Massachusetts. Years later, Ali made a confession to his lifelong friend.
He's looking dead in the eye. He said, I would like to change places with you. You have a good education, you have a PhD. I said, excuse me? Because I thought he was just joking, you know, but he was serious, you know. I said, you know, well, I would like to change places with you, to be the most famous man on earth, to be recognized anywhere I go. You have done more than anybody in this whole damn state or the whole doggone country has done for a lot of people. It's been a pleasure watching him bring joy to many, many people. It's been a pleasure for me to watch him succeed and to go through all the hardships and the denial that you have to go through when you're an athlete and to keep on pushing to be the best.
But in the 1960s in segregated America, it would take more than being the best at the Olympics for a black man to matter. At a time when a gold medal couldn't even get you served at a whites-only restaurant, the future Muhammad Ali knew he had to dream big. In his hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, Ali's drive and success was a source of pride for other African Americans. For Lawrence Montgomery, the young neighbor Ali used to babysit, he was also an inspiration.
Ali, man, come on, you know, that was like our hero. He was our hero.
Ali's dream was to become the heavyweight champion of the world. It wasn't going to be easy, as there were many obstacles to overcome.
You knew your place. If you didn't know your place, you had a problem. And that's pretty much what segregation taught us. Stay in your place. We were still living in the antebellum South then. You know what I mean? There was some things happening to people who spoke too much that you never saw them again.
It's a good feeling being from Louisville, Kentucky, and the baddest man in the world.
Oh yeah, he always was a big talker. You know? A lot of it was bravado. Because back then that's all you had was bravado.
I'm bad, and what kills it, I'm pretty. Look at me, man.
I think it was more convincing himself than it was anybody else in the beginning. But after a while, it became one of his tools.
You used to whoop me. Didn't I tell you I was going to come back one day?
You know, I found out later as I traveled that he had a lot of people, even in the black race, who did not like him because of the way he talked. The detractors. And he just kept on talking. I loved it. The adoration that we had for him. Wherever his successes were, we were just filled with joy and happiness for him too, you know? And for ourselves, you know? A lot of times that our fighters would represent a lot of frustration that black people had at those times, you know? We would get it out through them. Just watching him, man, you know, shoot, if he could do it, I could do some of it anyway, you know? I do think he laid a lot of groundwork for a lot of us, and we don't realize it yet.
The world of boxing in the 50s was by and large a shady business. Many boxers were managed by organized crime or their friends. In Louisville, a group of Kentucky's business elite, most of them millionaires, decided to get together and offer to manage Cassius Clay. Those 11 men helped Clay avoid the more corrupt side of the boxing world.
Well, most girls in high school don't become fans of boxing champions or people involved in boxing, but I did, I guess, because my father was one of the 11 businessmen that helped finance Muhammad in the early days. So I followed him pretty closely for many years, and I remember that I was probably a bigger fan than any of my brothers.
But that didn't mean Ina's father allowed her to go to any of Ali's fights. While her brothers were ringside for the World Heavyweight Championship, Ina rebelled.
What I did is I went with about 15 guys to Richmond, a nearby city, and watched it on closed-circuit television. And Muhammad was, I think, the 15-to-1 underdog. And of course, I bet on him. And he ended up winning, which was very surprising to everybody. Nobody thought he'd win. But I knew he would because he had such unbelievable self-confidence. From the beginning, he told everybody, I'm going to be the heavyweight champion of the world. And I believed him.
As Ina grew up, Ali's actions continued to impress her.
I think he had courage inside the ring and outside the ring. He refused to be inducted into the armed forces. He also changed his religion and changed his name. These things just weren't done back then, and it was a really big step.
Ina's belief in Ali didn't end when she was in college. In fact, it was just the beginning. In 1997, she was asked to be one of the key players in helping Ali build a new dream.
One thing that especially attracted me is hearing Muhammad talk about how he saw so many people, but particularly young people, who had given up hope that they could make something of themselves. And he wanted to create an institution that would inspire them, to make them all realize that each of us has the potential to do wonderful things.
Everything Ali has tried to achieve in his life and wants to leave as his legacy is summed up in the Ali Center, built in his hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. Part of Ali's vision was to have visitors experience the full spectrum of his life.
Hey, you. What you doing in here? You know I can't serve you. Now leave.
There were many times that, I guess, developing a thing like the Ali Center got really rough. Many people thought, you're not going to be able to do this. This is too hard. And nobody's ever done an institution around a single living individual like this before, other than presidential libraries. And there was a lot of skepticism, and it was hard. But I would always think of Muhammad and his tenacity and his courage and all those wonderful character traits, and it would inspire me to think, okay, we can do this. It certainly was the hardest thing I've ever done, but the thing of which I'm most proud.
In 1960, the Louisville sponsors sent young Cassius Clay to Miami to train at the legendary 5th Street Gym. It was a rundown walk-up full of Cuban boxers fleeing Castro, old-timers from the harsh world of pre-war boxing, and a young doctor.
I was a doctor for all the boxers in Miami, all of them. Ali was just a guy they sent down from Louisville, and nobody was excited about him. Go down and see Dr. Pacheco, he takes care of all our fighters, get a flu shot. Well, he came in, and he started moving around, and I said, what are you moving for? He says, well, I don't like needles. I said, well, you're gonna get one tonight, so you better stop moving, because you're gonna get one. My nurse, she knew how to give people shots. Boy, she got him, put him up against the wall and gave him the shot. I think he was 18 or something like that. My nurse says, she was an old black church woman. Says, either that boy is crazy or he is going to be the champion. I said, Miss Mabel, I think both things are possible.
But nobody was going to give Cassius Clay a fight with the world champion, Sonny Liston. At least not until Clay exploited another one of his talents, giving the sports writers something to write about. Clay took reporters to Liston's house at 2 a.m., woke him up, and yelled at him to fight on the lawn. He started calling Liston the bear and showed up at press events with a bear trap. A lot of people found him pretty irritating, but nobody could ignore him.
He became a loudmouth. He became a joke. He became a little kid screaming and hollering in the dark. He was gonna get killed.
At the weigh-in before the fight, Clay put on a show. He was yelling and screaming at Liston like a madman. Some people thought he was terrified. Some people thought he was crazy. And when the bell rang to start the fight, most people thought he was walking into the jaws of death. They were wrong.
Almost every fight that Ali had was born in the moment. You know, he's like a jazz man, like a guy that gets up to play a solo, but he doesn't know what he's gonna play till he starts playing. That's the way he did it. He was a jazz man. He played his solo when it came time.
Sonny Liston had a punch that could fell an ox, but he never got the chance to land it. Ali danced away from everything Liston had to throw. At the bell for round 7, Liston didn't come out of his corner.
Go, ladies and gentlemen. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
Now that Ali was champ, everyone had something to say about his boxing style.
One of the great trainers, Papa Smurf, said to me, you know why he beats you? Because he shows you his mistakes, and then he kills you when you come in to take advantage. Ali did everything wrong, and there are a number of do's and don'ts. He did every don't. I mean, he didn't do very many do's, but he did every don't, because he pulled away from a punch. That's terrible. Because he kept his left hand down. That's terrible. Because he danced all the time on the tips of his toes. It means you get so tired you can't go anymore after about 3 rounds. He looked and said, oh my God, he's got his left hand down by his hip. All he's got to do is throw a big left hook and it's going to be all over. He starts to throw a left hook. He steps inside the left hook and powders him with a right. Huh? What happened to the left hook? It flew over in the air. He couldn't tell you. He wasn't aware of this. It just came out. It just happened. It just is. That's what Ali is. You know, that's what made him possibly the greatest fighter of all time.
I'm still pretty. What you gonna say about this, huh?
There was this face in front of me proclaiming, I'm young and handsome and fast and pretty and can't possibly be beat. And I felt like the glory train had passed through me.
While many took offense to Ali's exaggerated ego, others like Davis Miller gained hope. Growing up in North Carolina, Ali was Davis's childhood hero.
My mom died in August 1963. I was 10 years old, and I just simply shut down. For many years, I didn't speak to hardly anyone until I got Ali's mouth and learned to imitate his voice. At 16, I was 4'10" and weighed 63 pounds. I was the smallest kid in my high school. As small as I was, and with the mouth that I had, I was constantly beaten up by all the guys. I was locked up in lockers, punched in the belly. It was nothing less than torture for me. A dream life with Ali kept me alive. If it had not been for Ali, I had plenty of reason to be dead in a ditch somewhere. In my early 20s, watching Ali, and particularly after the Foreman fight, I said, you know, this guy at 32 years old, who no one gave a chance against Foreman, if he can do that, well, I can just quit school now, become Bruce Lee Jr., become Ali Jr., become, you know, the greatest kickboxer in the world. Ali and his personal style, his mouth, his elegance in the ring, me patterning my martial arts style after that, and the discipline it took to do that eventually gave me confidence to step up and say, I'm worth something, pay some attention to me.
15 years later, a twist of fate would help Miller's fantasy friendship with Ali become real.
All my adult years, after my kickboxing years, I'd wanted to be a writer. I was managing video stores and was miserable doing it. Had 2 small kids, was working 70 to 80-hour weeks, and felt that I had something larger in me, something better. I found out I was going to lose my job, and it was the Easter weekend. I was delivering supplies to one of my stores, and it happened to be across the street from Muhammad Ali's mom's house. There was a block-long Winnebago parked in front with license plates that read "The Greatest." I thought I had some clue who that might belong to, and I went up and knocked on the door of the Winnebago, and Ali came to the door and opened it looking as big as God, and he asked me in, did magic tricks for me. It was wonderful. And he invited me in for dinner, and it felt like a seminal moment in my life. Felt like some verification of everything I had believed as this dweeby Ali fan in my teens, and I wanted to write about it. I picked up the phone the next morning and called Esquire magazine, picking out an editor's name. I told him, you know, I just met Muhammad Ali, and I used to sort of kickbox, and huge Ali fan, and think I see some things in Ali that no one's ever written about. And we talked about a half hour, and he made an assignment. And it would be years before I'd understand that that's not the way it happens in the writing world. But it launched me. It ran in a number of magazines and a number of newspaper magazines, won a number of awards. It was eventually published in Best American Sports Writing of the Century. So I was made the boxing editor of the second largest sports magazine in the United States because of it, which just allowed me to keep seeing Ali. And we hung out and hung out and hung out and became kind of buds. Ali spent hour after hour with my son, pretending to be Frankenstein's monster, doing magic tricks for him. And my son, who'd really not cared that much about Ali and to that point, came away mesmerized.
This man will win the crown in 2020. Look at the face.
Anybody that spent serious time with him, he's a remarkable man. That childlike quality that is at once seemingly both wise and naive.
He will be the greatest of that day of all time.
And I kept writing more and more intimate stories about him, and in a time when other people had no access to him. And I truthfully think no one's ever written as intimately about Ali as I have. I can pretend now to be the greatest Ali writer of all times.
Attention! Okay, salute, ball!
In America in the late 1950s, a new group appeared more prominently on the scene. A group that told black men to stand up for themselves, to fear no one, to take their place in the world by any means necessary. They were called the Nation of Islam.
If there were no Nation of Islam, there would be no Muhammad Ali.
Left flank march! Left flank march!
It was a new vision of the black man that struck fear into the hearts of many white Americans. But that vision struck a chord with young Cassius Clay.
What's absent in the black community is really strong, the strong black male image, the strong father image, the strong man image. And in my estimation, that's what the Nation of Islam does for black men.
Whose soldiers are we? Mohammed. Whose soldiers are we? Mohammed.
Brothers, there's a saying amongst us in the Nation of Islam, and that is Muhammad makes men. Is that right? That's right. And many of us, before we came to the Nation of Islam, we weren't men. Some of us were drug dealers. Some of us were thugs and pimps.
Yes, it does. Come on.
And the Nation of Islam has a record of making men like no other organization.
As the book says, the truth is the light. You never heard no truth in no Christianity. You was made a blind slave.
Cassius Clay, the new heavyweight champion of the world, revealed that he had become what was known as a black Muslim. Even more surprising, he now had a new name.
It's Muhammad Ali. Muhammad means worthy of all praises, and Ali means most high in the Asian African language.
Ali's new faith was about to be put to the test. With boxing's toughest challenge behind him, the Vietnam War would force the heavyweight champion of the world to take on the biggest fight of his life. "1966 was a seminal year for both Muhammad Ali and the United States. The Vietnam War and the fight for civil rights were raging. Ali did not keep silent about either. Reginald Meeks was a young man growing up in Muhammad Ali's hometown, Louisville, Kentucky. He too was shaped by the same events as Ali.
This was a serious time in our community, and it was a serious time for me as well.
Hundreds of young men were being called to the draft, and Muhammad Ali was no exception. But going to war went against Ali's religious beliefs as a member of the Nation of Islam.
It's just up to me to which one I fear the most, the government or Allah.
What are your...
And I fear Allah the most.
As a result, Ali took on his first public fight outside the ring when he registered as a conscientious objector, or CO.
I've always gotten a lot of strength from Muhammad Ali because he was willing to go down those roads that other people would choose not to. And those roads that he knew were perilous for him. And seeking to become a CO was a perilous road for any young black kid to try to travel.
Might be out here fighting, I might be in the jail without bail.
Ali caused us to question our role in that war. Those questions certainly resonated with many of us. I began to explore my spirituality a lot deeper than probably most, and began to understand that my responsibility was to not take lives. When I was called to come in, I registered as a CO. Ali's stance was a stance that I had to take. The courage, the inspiration, I think, was there from Ali.
But there were other times in Meeks' life when he had to have courage. The roots of his social conscience can be traced back to the 1950s and the civil rights movement in the United States.
We were marching on City Hall and trying to get the city council to allow individuals to live wherever they wanted to. It was an intense time because people were dying. There were riots, not just in Louisville, but all over the country. And you knew you were part of something that was much bigger than yourself.
Reginald Meeks continued a life of public service, first as a city alderman, and today as a Kentucky state representative.
Ali said, you know, I'm not bound by parameters that somebody else puts on me. I've got something to offer. Ali kind of showed us how to bring it to the world stage. He gave us a lot of pride, a lot of inspiration.
In 1967, Muhammad Ali was convicted of evading the draft. The champion of the world had a new family and no way to make a living. He had been stripped of his title and boxing license. They even took his passport away so he wouldn't be able to box abroad.
I look at everything that happened to me as divine, and it was meant to be, so I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do.
He wanted to be the people's champ. He wanted to fight the battles that, you know, the people maybe couldn't fight. Seeing Muhammad Ali at a young age and seeing his willingness to put everything on the line and stand up for what he believes in, it's something that is so important to him that he doesn't care what anybody else thinks. He doesn't care if he's the only person who believes it. And I said, that's the kind of athlete that I want to become.
For NBA basketball player Etan Thomas, Ali's influence has motivated him to use his own success for the greater good.
Young people can relate to us more so than they can their sometimes parents or teachers or pastors, you know, simply because they admire what we do.
My pretty sister.
One thing about Muhammad Ali, that he was really into the community. He's like, the problems of my community are my problems as well. And that's something that I, you know, admire. You have to be able to give a voice to people who feel that they have no voice. And whether it's bringing awareness to them or to the people who are in charge, you know, I'm gonna make sure that my voice is heard. Well, I do a lot of different things with kids, especially here in DC. As far as Boys and Girls Clubs, youth prisons, YMCAs, go and speak to the inner city schools. But just really instilling in them that there are obstacles ahead of them. And I show them that they don't have time for any kind of foolishness because this is what they're up against. And that's where I use my poetry a lot because all young people love hip hop. And hip hop is nothing but poetry. And they listen. For some, injustice comes in packs like wolves in sheep's clothing. TKO'd by the right hooks of life, many are left staggering under the weight of the day. leaning against the ropes of hope. When your dreams have fallen on barren ground, it becomes difficult to keep pushing yourself forward like a train.
Administering pain like a doctor with a needle. Their sequels continue more lethal than injections, and they keep telling us all is equal. I tell them that instead of giving tax breaks to the rich, financing corporate mergers, and leading us into unnecessary wars and under-the-table dealings with Enron and Halliburton, maybe they could work on making society more peaceful.
Ali is a special person, and he has a special place in history. And there's only going to be one Ali. You can't duplicate Muhammad Ali in any sense. For him to be willing to stand up for whatever it is that he believes in, you know what I mean? That's something that the whole country wasn't ready for. You know, and he kind of set the tone for athletes, future generations, to really follow in his footsteps. And that's what I try to do.
In 1971, the conviction against Ali for refusing the draft was overturned, but his championship title was still gone. With his best years as an athlete now behind him, it looked like an impossibility that he would ever regain it. Then, in the African nation of Zaire, in one of the first major sporting events ever to be organized and run by Black Americans, the aging but determined Ali set out to win back his crown.
I can't describe to you the happiness of that whole experience. It was like going to a festival, you know? I mean, we got the star and the public loves him. And as if to play into Ali's hand once again, he gives us Foreman. A guy that goes up to the penthouse and says, my God, it's hot here, and the natives smell bad. Everything that Foreman did was wrong. And everything that Ali did was right. Ali, when he got through training, would walk through the worst parts, the most impoverished ghettos, handing out pictures, handing out boxing gloves. The whole town developed this thing, Ali Boumaye. Pretty soon it roared. I said, what does that mean? He said, it means Ali kill him. So Ali went in there sky high. He was having so much fun. He just didn't even think he could lose.
Here we go, the bell sounds.
As the fight began, Ali started doing things no one expected or understood.
When he invented rope-a-dope, we thought he was crazy. Don't do that, Ali, try it. Screaming, hollering, slapping him, or slapping his... Don't do that, don't let him... And he was saying, he's not hurting me, he's hurting my shoulders. He was right, we were wrong.
This was the first television sporting event to be watched by close to 1 billion people. Because to people all over the world, it was more than a boxing match. It was the rebellious and idealistic spirit of the 60s, fighting against impossible odds. The Ali that came back from retirement was not the same fighter. He couldn't dance out of trouble the way he used to, but he discovered another strength nobody knew he had. He could take a punch. This became clear in the last fight he would win against Ernie Shavers in 1977. But it was evident to everybody that the old Ali was gone.
They had been telling me over and over and over again, no, we're not going to have a hard fight. We're just going to have easy fights for him. Meaning, we're going to get as much money as we can, fighting nobodies. But they kept matching him with pretty hot, strong guys. And then they come up with Ernie Shavers. I said, listen, this guy can punch like crazy. And from what I know about Ali, he's going to stand there and take all these punches. He ain't going to get knocked out, but he's going to take a big beating. Big beating. After the Shavers fight with Ali, I walked away. What was the thing? I'd had enough. If that's your idea of an easy fight, that's it, I'm gone. I'm never gonna be back here again. I never was. It hurts like hell. Hurts like hell. You don't spend 17, 18 years with a guy that's that beautiful, that good, that kind. I mean, he's a friend of the family. So, I mean, by that point, we were all family. I mean, he'd been at my house. My daughter was born then. He had her in his arms all the time, and we had a family. And you have to tell this guy, no, that's it. That's the end.
Dr. Pacheco retired from Ali's entourage. He retired from working in boxing altogether as he came to see a conflict between being a doctor and the damage done to so many by the sport he loved. By the early 1980s, Muhammad Ali had begun to show the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. the world's greatest athlete had met an opponent who couldn't be defeated in the ring. For Parkinson's patient John Ball, Ali's fight against the disease inspired him to transcend his own limitations.
I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in about 1983. I was 39 years old at the time. The first symptom I had, and the one that still persists most frequently even now, is the dystonia in my left foot, where my toes will just curl under. I went on to freezing, where I couldn't initiate movement, and eventually, the tighter I'd get, I'd just come to a standstill where I just couldn't move. Well, I'd run in high school and college. I'd been a miler in high school. I ran a 4:29 in high school, which in the 60s, early 60s, was a reasonable time. So I decided in 1996 to run the LA Marathon. Well, that first marathon was really fabulous because Muhammad Ali was on the starters platform.
3, 2, 1.
As we approached the start line, people are chanting, Ali, Ali, Ali. And I looked up at the starters platform, and he was pointing out people in the crowd that he was making eye contact with. And he pointed at me, and I sort of threw my hands up, and because I felt this connection between his having Parkinson's and my own Parkinson's, and it was just one of those defining moments in your life, when you think that you've made a connection that even though there were probably 300 or 400 people between the two of us, I felt like we'd really connected at that moment. First marathon, you don't have any sense of, you get to mile 22 and you think, God, this can't go on. This just can't go on. And you got another 4 miles to go. So that moment carried me through a lot that day.
Lonnie Ali has known Muhammad Ali since she was a little girl growing up in Louisville, Kentucky.
I met Muhammad when I was 6, little kid in the neighborhood where his parents lived. And he had a huge influence on me because he would give me advice because he always thought, I was this shy, naive young girl, and he never wanted me to be hurt by anything, so he would always try to share his wisdom with me. And he was very wise. It was actually at the age of 17, I didn't decide, I knew. It was like, it's just one of those things that the sun's gonna come up in the morning. I just knew that one day that I would end up married to Muhammad. And it was a thing I just sort of took for granted, in a way.
Lonnie became Muhammad Ali's fourth wife in 1986. She has been a true partner, helping to fulfill Ali's bigger vision for himself and others.
Even in his mentoring of me as a child and even now, he's always made me conscious of what my purpose is. Of course, I feel my purpose is to help him fulfill his purpose. So, that's the way that works.
But even if Ali's purpose was challenged by Parkinson's disease, he remained optimistic.
He never looks back with regret. He never says, why me? Why did I have to get this disease? Look what it has robbed me of. Instead, he looks at what he still can do and maybe the opportunities it has given him.
Parkinson's affects your automatic movements.
Okay, then we're going to push back up and onto both knees.
Things that once came naturally now have to be planned, one difficult step at a time.
So bring it back. You're going to pick up 1 foot to the outside, Eva, I'll be right there.
It's hard to do it alone, but at the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center in Phoenix, Ali and Lonnie have helped to create a place where people can learn to live with this condition.
There. Good work.
And our purpose there is to help those who have Parkinson's disease, who are uninsured and underinsured, to help them get through life and the daily struggles of what Parkinson's disease, the challenges it presents for them.
The center is an extension of Ali's unique ability to empathize with those around him.
I've seen Muhammad walk into burn units in children's hospitals where I cannot even go into the unit because it's just too devastating for me. I'm too emotional. And he'll go in with a smile on his face, a few magic tricks in his pocket, and he'll make every one of those kids in there smile and laugh. Muhammad has that gift. He just has that gift. He has the ability to reach down deep in the soul of misery and bring up something wonderful in that person. And it may be that smile, that maybe they haven't had in a long time. He's able to do that.
Most people know about Ali's achievements inside the ring, but it has been his achievements outside the ring that are among his greatest. In 2002, he became a UN ambassador for peace and went to Afghanistan.
It was a request by the UN as part of his ambassador of peace duties and missions. He went there and met with President Karzai and met with the people, met with the children, went to the schools, and really got an opportunity to see the devastation that existed. He always tries to bring hope to these people, to whoever he visits, especially in places like that. I think it really opened his eyes wide to the devastation of war and poverty and hopelessness. He always treats people, no matter who they are, when he meets them, under any circumstances, with respect, with affection, with openness, with warmth. And I think that's one thing he's taught me, is to always do that, no matter what. And to always be conscious of those around you who do not have. You know, Muhammad's a very patient man in very many ways. I don't know if I've learned his patience or his ability to forgive, but hopefully, before my life is over, I will.
It seems ironic. A man whose fame came from fighting becomes an ambassador for peace. A man who, during his greatest act of courage, is labeled a coward. A man whose voice is silenced by illness somehow gains a voice that speaks to the whole world.
My relationship with Ali, to me it's a friendship. To me it's been life-changing. It doesn't mean anything to Ali at all. He's done that for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. He treats basically, virtually every person he meets as if they're family. And the whole world is family to Muhammad Ali.
He is the example of standing up for what you believe in, no matter what the price or no matter what the opposition.
He was indeed the greatest, and he brought joy and fun, and in some cases, drama into millions of lives.
Most of us would rather just hide from society or hide the fact that we have Parkinson's disease. Muhammad Ali has made a huge difference because he's such a visible personality, such a visible force in society.
He's considered, I guess, one of the most recognized people in the world. But when he meets you, he doesn't act like he's above you. He doesn't act like he's anything special. He makes you feel like you're the important one.
There's so many life lessons that Muhammad knows instinctively, you know, about being good to people and loving people and wanting peace and worrying about people who are less fortunate than he is. And no matter what mountain he has climbed, he's always looked down to make sure those behind him are brought up as well.
He loves who he is. He loves the effect that he has on people. It's amazing because he knows how great he is, but at the same time, he's so humble. And, you know, he'll look when he sees people in big crowds clapping. They still remember me? They still love me? I'm like, are you kidding? You know, and he just gets this sense on his face. He looks so peaceful, and he just kind of, you know, like I accomplished what I was supposed to.
He has weathered the storm, and he has kept his dignity. And he still makes people feel good.
He said a lot of things that we wish we could say, you know, that we were brave enough to do and say. He spoke for us. He was our spokesman as well as our hero. We loved him. We loved him.
He's propelled through life through a force which none of us have ever seen before, which is a life force guided by God. If it's true that God made us man in his image, well, he certainly made Ali in God's image. He is unique.